Oh, hi! Welcome to Trinity Talk Live, water cooler conversation from a Christian perspective. Brought to you today by Lay's Potato Chips.
We have a lot of product placement. It's Lay's, Coke,
All right,
Propel, Sharpie,
so I got a Sharpie. Oh yeah,
Mac.
So hey, welcome to the show. We forgot to turn the light on too. This is just a fun day. So the byline says it all. If you're first time joining us, it's not normally this disheveled at the beginning, only about 20% of the time. But water cooler conversation from a Christian perspective, that's bright. What level is that on?
Bright.
Good. It only needs to be at like 10 in here because it's like right on top of our face. So anyway, so we are coming to you live from Trinity Lutheran Church in Joppa, Maryland. Thank you very much for joining us today. What we try to do here on this weekly program is we talk about whatever people out there in the world are talking about, but we try to do it from a uniquely Christian perspective, which means we try to put Christ first. I don't even remember, did I even say I'm Ken and you say you're Ben? Did we even do that?
No, I don't think we did.
I'm Ken Coughlin.
I'm Ben Lander.
Now, insert that about 30 seconds ago. That's where we normally do it. I apologize for us being late. It's my fault. In addition to, doing stuff like this, I have an actual job here. It's not all just fun and games and getting on the air. And something came up at the last minute that needed my attention. So Ben was ready. He was prepared. Mary Kay was ready. They were ready to go. They were about to go on the air without me. And then I came running in, and the person who was responsible for my delay also threatened to come in, and that would have made an entertaining show. I'm not going to say who it was, though.
Although of the three of us, Ken's looking the most official.
I am looking the most official. You know what I found? And this is fun and interesting. So I'm looking official because we were going to film something today. We didn't end up filming it, and I won't go into details what it was, but it was something that I had to look the part of the lawyer, which I am a lawyer, but I had to look like a lawyer. But I didn't actually have to be a lawyer today. I just had to look like a lawyer today. Well, in the course of, I don't think I ever want to look like a lawyer again, because in the course of like the first 2 hours I was here, I had 2 legal consults. It's like people see me in a suit and they remember, oh yeah, he's a lawyer. Let me ask him this, And so that what? We're out of sync?
Uh-oh.
We are massively out of sync. Why are we massively out of sync? All right. Let me think this through for a second.
Please stand by.
Please stand by. We should not be out of sync.
You weren't just a few seconds ago.
We weren't a few seconds ago, and now we are. All right, and this is why I hate OBS, because if with Wirecast we could like just restart it and the stream would not stop and keep going. With OBS, if we restart things, then the whole stream is going to stop, and we'd have a whole different link.
Our top story for tonight, Murphy's Law.
All right. How are we? I'm just trying to remember how we got everything hooked up. I'm going through my brain at how everything is being processed. All right. So, no, I have an idea. All right, here's what we're going to do. All right, Mary Kay, you and I are going to switch seats. Come talk with Ben for a little bit. You got to get on here so you can get out of my way.
While we are figuring things out, I'll continue Ken's normal spiel at the beginning here. So I forget where you left off, Ken, but I'm just going to say that we're on a weekly program, weekly schedule here. So the byline says it all, that it's water cooler conversation from a Christian perspective. So we'll be talking about a lot of things that you're probably already talking about, or already hearing about at least, or reading about, or watching on the news or anything like that. So it's not always current events. It could be things that are particular to the Christian circles, or it could be things just in the world. But we try to take the approach of a uniquely Christian perspective, because while you will hear all kinds of voices out there, we try to keep Christ at the center of all our discussion. And so hopefully we nail that. We always may not hit it on the head every single time, but we hope that's our aim, what we try to do each and every week. And we invite you to be a part of that conversation. So
and sometimes I am.
Yes, Mary Kay is very, very good at that. So typically she's the one behind the camera, and she may respond here and there to your comments or to ours. But yeah, the way that you can do that, by the way, is either on Facebook or YouTube, either of the places that we are currently streaming. Hopefully, we'll continue streaming tonight. If you put in the Facebook comments, it will appear right here to my left in that blue box, as well as if you put it in the live chat on YouTube. And we will love to interact with you and respond in that way. It's always makes for a better show if you guys can interact with us live. But
so
if you
Ken
aren't,
sometimes can get your comments off of his computer right here. And if he's not paying close enough attention, part of my job is to keep an eye on the stream too and flash him a sign that says, "Hey, somebody's trying to talk to you."
in the past 2 weeks, you usually have like these nice little emoji signs.
I know he's
and
lost
we've
my
yeah, we've
sign.
lost those, but she's given us makeshift signs. But yeah, that's part of what Mary Kay does as well. She keeps
I
an eye
try
on the
to
time
make
for
them
us.
laugh while they're on.
Yeah, you got to keep it fun.
I do.
But
Because
if you're,
sometimes it gets really heavy.
yeah, that's true, depending on the story.
Yeah.
But we also try to appease Mary Kay by
What?
getting a uplifting story
Oh.
too.
Which you didn't this time. Or at least I didn't see it. Is anyone
Yeah,
considering uplift? I don't know.
nah, I don't
didn't
think
read
we
through
really
all
did
them.
this time. Nope. So next week we'll have to. But by the way, if you're not able to join us live in the chat, please feel free, even if you're watching this after the fact and haven't completely tuned us out, you can put something in the comments of the YouTube channel. We'll try to go back of that particular episode. We can't go back to every single episode, but at the top of the show the following week, we will try to address any comments or concerns or questions or things that have been placed in the comments section for that
What's the matter?
episode. We do have one comment.
Yeah, go ahead and start talking about
Yeah, we do have one comment from last week's episode, and I think it's actually
Oh.
pertaining to Mary Kay.
Oh.
It was Allison Mayer. She had
Yeah, but I
responded.
can't remember I remember what I said, what reference I made. She responded to the reference I made to Spaceballs, and
Mhm.
it had something to do with the number 1, 2, 3, 4
I can't remember either without
being
going
the
back
code
to
of somebody's luggage. I mean, that's what it is in Spaceballs, but I can't remember what we were saying.
Yeah, what was that?
I'd have to look back at the timestamp to figure it out.
Hmm. But actually, so it's
But I
kind of ironic.
appreciate you, little sis. I appreciate you. And I'm going to be texting you later, just FYI.
There you go. Yeah, so it is kind of ironic that Mary Kay now is in this seat because you get to address the
A
comment that was addressed to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, and we just appreciate any.
Yeah, but you have to make sure
interaction.
you're putting those comments on the YouTube because it's hard for us to go back. If you watch the Facebook
Right.
after the fact, it's hard for us to see those comments. So if you're gonna comment on the YouTube feed, the YouTube recording,
Mm-hmm.
because we can go back and look at those.
Yeah.
How's it going over there, Ken? Oh no,
Disappeared for a second.
I know. We went white, not black. White.
Mm.
Oh, there it goes. Oh, the
All right,
first. Really?
cool.
I am not anywhere near ready to talk about the first story. What's the first story?
I'm going to introduce the first story anyway. Well, actually, so speaking of Facebook, where we're encouraging you to interact with us, Ken can always chime in on Mary Kay's mic. But I'm sure if you are on Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp, you
Which one are we talking about first?
recognize it's the, well, actually, there's two kind of
Okay. Well,
stories under the same sort of heading. It has to do with Facebook. So I guess I'll start with the first one about the 60-minute interview. And so if you are familiar with these social media platforms at all, then you may have, I mean, we've shared plenty of times on this show, even kind of the balancing act that it is of what
what to
social
put out,
media,
yeah.
of what to put out on social media. And
and
also
how
the
to
balance.
take what's put out there because, sometimes we look at somebody's life and it seems perfect because all they're showing us is the
highlights.
yeah, the good
Yeah.
stuff.
Exactly.
So
So that kind of ties into what has happened this past week. So this is an article from CNN, and there was a 60-minute interview with a lady by the name of Frances Haugen. Now, Miss Haugen is a former employee of Facebook, but also before Facebook, she worked for Google and Pinterest. And so she actually came out. She's a Facebook whistleblower, talking about how the company, in her words, prioritized prioritizes profit over public good. And she's recently released a bunch of, it says, tens of thousands of pages of internal documents from Facebook, kind of supporting her claim here that Facebook is well aware of this balancing act, that Facebook is a tool. Any social media platform is a tool that can be used for good or ill, and Facebook is fully aware of this, and particularly in regards to their other subsidiary company, Instagram. They're particularly aware. There's one especially concerning document that was released, an internal memo basically to Instagram that said, we are aware of the effects of, I forget the exact wording, but it said, we're aware of the effects that Instagram has on young women in their, in regard, 1 in 3 women, basically young women, have a negative self-esteem, negative body image, basically, and how they contribute to that. And so that evidence alone shows that they're aware, but other evidence shows that they haven't really done much to change that. And jumping back over to
we also talked about their ability to censor stuff and what makes them different than
like a bulletin board versus
a
publisher. And so that's kind of a fine line that Facebook is treading, and I think there's still going to be, as more develops, it's going to come down to, I think, where
I just want to say, not that I think it's right for people to be shaming women's and giving them a bad body image, but just being realistic and trying to decide what can they do.
Yeah. So in regards to the Instagram comment, I think you're right. We do have to be realistic as to what are the expectations of the social media platform. But also on, I guess, one of the things that was concerning also to Miss Haugen, this Facebook whistleblower, she was brought on to Facebook in 2019 after she had previously worked for Google and Pinterest. And she was brought on a committee that was the basically integrity committee. It was, what's the name of it, actually?
I'm sorry, I haven't read these, so I'm not sure I'm going to be much help. But
no, it's okay. I forgot to highlight the name, but basically, this committee to mitigate and one of their tasks.
Be careful,
you're
hitting the camera.
One of their tasks was to mitigate misinformation, especially concerning the election and things like that.
Well, that's kind of important, but
yeah, but the concerning thing is, after the election, the committee was disbanded. So it certainly seemed, it certainly seemed like their only concern was the election, and now
things.
Okay,
here at the top it says she was recruited by Facebook in 2019 and took the job to work on addressing misinformation, but after the company decided to dissolve its civic integrity team,
so that's the name of it.
Shortly after the 2020 presidential election, her feelings about the company started to change.
So this civic integrity team worked on censoring a lot of, let's call it what it is, weeding out a lot of the misinformation. But after the election, that has been disbanded. Now Facebook is coming back and saying, defending themselves, saying, well, they disbanded that civic integrity team, but it's been spread out across other divisions, such as their international integrity.
It says the civic integrity team's work was distributed to other units when it was dissolved. Facebook Vice President of Integrity.
There you go.
They have a VP of Integrity. Okay. Guy Rosen said on Twitter Sunday night that the group was integrated into other teams so the work pioneered for elections could be applied even further.
Yeah.
Okay. So does that include like when they misquote people? Like when people are putting out those memes that say somebody said something and they...
Presumably, it's all the fact-checking. That's what the civic integrity team kind of oversees, is the fact-checking.
Because I don't think they're doing a really good job.
Well, yeah, they've been disbanded, and it's been put over across.
Whoever other teams are now in charge of it, I don't know that they're necessarily doing a really great job.
I'm not sure how good of a job they were doing when it was
Ken can
banded.
speak to this better than I can, but I know he's caught a couple people throwing out some posts there
hateful
that
speech.
Well, not that they're hateful, just that they're misinformed.
Mm.
I don't know, Ken, you have to remind me of the one we were talking about most recently.
Oh, I'm not listening.
Oh, well, that's not helpful. He said he's not listening to me.
Yes, I said I'm not listening. I'm focusing on tech stuff here.
Well,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
just throw me into your spot without giving me any time to prepare, and you're not even going to help me.
well, I mean, we
Yep.
do see, the consequences of that, and right, one has to question too, what exactly does the civic integrity team do, and what exactly are their criteria for what constitutes misinformation?
Yeah.
And that's a concern. Another concern that
Oh, we have a comment, but
okay.
let me see. Oh, I don't know who that is, but they said something about they're on YouTube. Hold on.
What's the name?
I don't know. I gotta. You didn't. Honesters said something about loving Brian Laundrie.
Oh, okay.
We're not even to that story yet.
Yeah, so
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, stick around. We'll talk about that story in a
Well,
minute.
hopefully I won't be talking about that story. Ken will have figured everything out, and I'll be back where I belong.
But
On
yeah,
the other side of the camera.
going back to our current story, there was another also a concern of this whistleblower, Ms. Haugen, basically explaining it's one of the quotes she says here is that no one at Facebook is malevolent, the incentives are misaligned. And that speaks to, she's saying, this, all the fact checking and all this, civic integrity, the work that they do. Well, the way that the algorithm, and this is the other concern she brought up, is the way that the algorithm of Facebook, YouTube, all these other social media platforms is designed is that it's designed to generate revenue. So the way that it does that is that it picks up on things that you watch or you read or you spend time like clicking on pages that you click on, and then it formulates in its algorithm things like that you would be more predisposed to watch.
So
or to
how they
read.
decide what is in my
All right,
newsfeed.
I'm going to interrupt
Right.
for a second.
Oh, yay.
I got to try something here, and I just want to let everybody know. We're going to pause for a few minutes while I try to hook something up, but unfortunately, in order for me to do this, we're going to have to lose the video and the audio image, and then hopefully we'll be back here in a few minutes with everything synchronized. The stream should not end. It should continue to go if I have my thoughts in order here. You're just going to hopefully see the logo, the Trinity Talk Live will begin picture that we usually have up before we start streaming for a few minutes, and then we hope to be right back. If we do go off the air for some reason, we will start another stream, and so you'll be able to check in a few minutes on the Trinity Job YouTube channel for that, but hopefully that will not be the case. So everybody just hold on, be patient with us for a second. We're going to see if we can get this worked out, okay?
How do I show the live chat on? Hi, people. We think we're on the air now. We think our sound is coming out.
If you could do us a favor, if you're still watching us and you can hear us, then please let us know in the comments or the live chat. We do apologize for that momentary disruption. Hopefully we've got the synchronization issue under control here. And if that's still having issues, please let us know that as well.
Seems to be working.
Appreciate
Yay!
it.
I can
Woo,
get
thank
back
you,
to my
Ken.
seat.
All right, rotate. Unless you want to do the rest of the show.
No, I don't want to do the rest of the show. I love you guys, but I like to be behind the camera. Okay.
We also found out that you can have a producer cam on the computer.
No, I don't need that. I don't need that.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Some technical issues take longer to fix than others. So, but hopefully we are synchronized now, and we will be, if we're lucky, for the rest of the show. So I do. I don't remember what you were talking about because, as I said before, I wasn't paying attention. So you keep talking, and I'll just chime in. How's that?
Yeah, so basically what we were saying was among the other issues that Ms.
Well,
Haugen had brought
we
up.
had just discussed about how the algorithm puts the same stuff in front of you that you're likely to agree with, and that can cause, what did you call it, an echo?
Basically an echo chamber. So her main thing, I read the quote here. So Haugen said that no one at Facebook is malevolent. She just says the incentives are misaligned. So her issue with bringing this forward is not that it's intentionally malicious per se, but that the way that the culture is at Facebook really doesn't incentivize the employees or the heads, the CEOs or anything of Facebook to look after public good. Really, they're looking after their bottom line. And so one of those concerns also was because of the way that the algorithms work, that people click on things and it's a lot easier to elicit an angry emotion from people. So they click on that. That just kind of creates this echo chamber of anger and outrage. This outrage kind of perpetuates this outrage culture where, so part of her job as the civic integrity committee was to take down and mitigate some of that misinformation and hate speech and all of that. But that becomes very difficult to do, especially when they've dissolved that team. And now, Facebook doesn't, even though they're aware of the polarizing effects of comments that are on there, whether it's political or just across the gamut of whatever can anger people, I guess. And basically they're more interested in generating ad revenue than in stopping people from tearing each other apart. Yeah,
and I don't remember what order we were going to do the stories in, but I'm going to suggest that we will do. I want to respond, not right now because we're in the middle of this story, but I do want to respond to some of what Honest Stirs is saying here in the chat. So once we're done with this story, we'll take up. I think we should take up the Brian Laundrie story next. I guess when I read the story, and I apologize if you've already said anything like this, but here was my thoughts when I was looking through it. And I'm coming at it from the perspective of a lawyer, all right, because that's what I am. And First Amendment law. And now I understand, and we've talked, before anybody starts chiming up on me and saying Facebook is not the government, First Amendment applies only to the government, I know that. I get that. I'm only saying this from the perspective of this is my mindset as far as where we should draw the line as far as speech that is allowed and speech that is not allowed. We all have our biases. We all have our background. Mine is I'm a lawyer, so I was trained in First Amendment law, so my brain just works in that way as far as seeing rational places to draw lines based upon what my history is and what my training is. And in that regard, like when we talk about, there's certain things that are defined as hate speech, there's certain things that are not protected under the First Amendment. I mean, the classic example everybody always gives is yelling fire in a crowded theater. That's not protected speech. Another example of speech that is not protected is speech that is designed to elicit a receptive audience to engage in imminent lawless action. In other words, if I am a Republican, which I'm not, I'm an independent, we've talked about that before in the show, but let's say I'm a Republican and I walk into the Democratic National Convention and I say, let's all go rob the DNC offices, all right? I'm advocating imminent lawless action, meaning right now, let's go do something illegal. But that's not exactly a receptive audience. That audience is not likely to do what I say in that circumstance. And so those are all the pieces that have to come together for speech to be to not be protected. And you can see with those guidelines, it allows a lot. I mean, there's a lot of types of speech that we allow under the law in this country because that's what it means to be free. Speech that you vehemently disagree with, you may find odious, all right? But unless it falls under those categories, it's allowed to be said. So whenever I read a story about something like this, like about Facebook, where what she's complaining about, she's saying Facebook knew that their platform was being used for these bad things, and they put profit over what's good for society. I'm trying to remember how she actually put it. Yeah. The thing I saw at Facebook over and over again was there were conflicts of interest between what was good for the public and what was good for Facebook. And Facebook always decided on what was good for them, meaning profits. And my only reaction was, I agree in many respects that there are certain types of speech that we cannot allow and we should not allow even on social media. I mean, obviously people have been known to use social media platforms to plan out terrorist attacks. That's the kind of speech that wouldn't be protected under the law, obviously. And I think that, yes, I'm perfectly fine with types of speech like that. Yeah, we should root it out. We should, harassing children. We've seen the big thing going on right now about, whether it be TikTok or Instagram and all the issues about Instagram being used as a bullying platform to really drive, especially young girls, and some of them to suicidal tendencies.
Which Instagram, and we did kind of mention the Instagram comment here too, because Instagram's owned by Facebook, I believe.
Right. Yes.
And so, yeah, there was like one of the documents that she released was that Instagram, at least it was an internal memo or something, saying that we understand that we have, or basically the effect that we have in 1 out of 3 young women.
Right.
Basically.
And so that's the type of thing that I think it is reasonable. Now, this is how a free market works too, I've got to say. Is that when your customer base starts crying out and says, this is unacceptable for this platform not to have enough safety measures in place to protect us from this, then that's what inspires big business to make changes, obviously. So I'm okay with those types of things. My concern is when I just read that general comment, and frankly, a lot of the things in this article I thought were short on specifics. The thing I saw on Facebook over and over again was that there were conflicts of interest between what was good for the public. Well, then answer for me, who decides what's good for the public? Because at another point in here, it goes on, but the evidence, now this wasn't the lady who was testifying, this was the correspondent for 60 Minutes saying, we have evidence from a variety of sources that hate speech, in general, I agree with you, we shouldn't allow hate speech. The problem is, how do we define hate speech? And that's been an issue, a hot topic today. Divisive political speech. Hold on, what do you mean by that? And misinformation. Well, we categorize misinformation. There were a lot of things. I'm not going to go into specifics because I don't want to turn this political, but there were a lot of things last year that we were being told were misinformation that turned out this year were actually dead accurate, and so there was a lot of movement in social media platforms last year to silence certain levels of speech as being misinformation, and lo and behold, it turned out they weren't misinformation. They were actually completely accurate information. So that's my only concern. It's like, I can agree with you in principle that there are certainly things that we should all be able to come together and say, no, that should not be allowed. The problem is, I think we tend to take that and throw everything into it that we don't like and try to draw an equivalency between, somebody who's, bullying young children to the point of, the depression and suicide, encouraging them to commit suicide or something, or somebody who is, trying to plan some kind of criminal enterprise through social media. And we say, oh, sure, we should ban that. So we should, and then we say, okay, divisive political speech should also be banned. Well, hold on. Those aren't necessarily the same thing. And freedom, if we want to live in a free society, I believe, I know this is a private entity. I won't get into legalities of the bulletin board and everything like that again. I'm just kind of encouraging, as a free market, we should be telling these corporations, you've got to draw the line at a place where freedom of expression is still protected, and we're not doing viewpoint discrimination. We're really just focusing on those situations where we're talking lawless action, we're talking legitimate dangers to life. People love to take, do hyperbole to the end. We disagree with this political viewpoint. That means 15 billion people's lives are in danger.
Yeah.
Let's take a step back and be realistic and be appreciative of one another and the fact that we can disagree and we should be free to express that. That was my thought.
Yeah, and I agree completely, especially about the divisive political speech. Anytime that you hear a private company so closely, for lack of a better phrase, in bed with the government, to say that we're going to monitor political speech, our ears should perk up.
Yeah.
Because that's a big red flag for me.
Mm-hmm.
That for a private company to be deciding what they are going to allow or not allow, especially in something like this, that's the line is very blurred between a person's, and we've talked about this before. That's what Mary Kay and I were kind of talking about earlier, was the difference between is it a bulletin board or is it a publisher?
Right.
I think the line is going to have to come down to at some point, and this may push that for Facebook to make that clear delineation of, okay, do we just allow people to post things, in which case, that all the questions about protected speech come into play, or are we going to actually say that we own these and publish them?
Right.
Which is frankly hard, almost impossible to police, to actually implement.
Now, we do have a few comments here from, well, first of all, B.A. Thomas says, "Good day, gents." Is that a hello, good day, or a bye, I have to leave, good day? I don't know. But good day to you too, sir.
Yeah.
And we have Honest Stirs has made a lot of comments here, some of which dealing with this story and some of which dealing with what will go into the next story. So I'll save those that are about the next story for when we get into that. But in regard to this story, he has said Zuckerberg is a disgrace and the liberal elite are ruining the country. And maybe this is the part, Honest Stirs, where you don't like me anymore. I'm going to largely disagree with you, but not, look, I will say this. I am not a fan of Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not, okay? Professionally speaking. I do believe that some of the policies that Robert Koger says all of the above, probably, meaning I guess he's referring to BA, so it's a hello and a goodbye. I don't know. But
so.
Anyway, I do believe that Mr. Zuckerberg, we've talked about before, he's the way they've run these social media platforms really has started to dive into viewpoint discrimination in many respects. And I disagree with that. I do not know Mr. Zuckerberg personally. I'm not going to cast aspersions at him personally. He hasn't committed any atrocious crime. I disagree with the way he runs his business.
Yeah.
It's his business. He can, we disagree and we have some legality issues we've talked about on the show before about whether or not the law should allow him to do certain things that he's doing. But I'm not going to call him a disgrace because I don't think, yes, 1 Peter 3:15 is about defending the faith, but it's also kind of how I try to carry out my life. You do this with gentleness and respect.
Sure.
We as Christians should be treating people with gentleness and respect. It doesn't mean you don't be firm. It doesn't mean you don't speak the truth. You do. But you can speak the truth. You can not compromise on the truth and still do it with gentleness and respect. So I will firmly say when I disagree with Mark Zuckerberg, but I'm not going to call him names. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And the other comment here, the liberal elite are ruining the country. Same thing. Here's my viewpoint on and I'll be honest. I know I've seen, and in fairness to you, Honest Stirs, I have seen a lot of conservative political YouTubers, things like that. That's the running tagline that's very popular right now, is referring to the liberal elite and all this kind of stuff. I don't like making generalizations because I wouldn't want them made about me.
Sure.
All right? If I'm going to criticize someone, I'm going to criticize that person, like I just did with Mark Zuckerberg, okay? I will call out an individual person.
On specific
things.
Also.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to use terms like the liberal elite or, let's face it, a few years ago when President Trump was in office, we saw the exact opposite going on the other side. So this is why I'm a political independent. So I agree that well, maybe I should phrase it this way. We may have some common ground that I do disagree with a lot of the things that people in political power are doing right now. And of course, the United States government anyway, right now, has a majority, technically 50-50 in the Senate, but with the vice presidency, they have the 51st vote of the Democratic side is in power in all offices. So you can take that to say that whenever I say I disagree with a lot of things that the federal government is doing, obviously, there's one political party right now that's doing that, but that does not mean I disagree with every single thing that political party is doing. Do I disagree? Did I disagree with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wearing a tax the rich dress to this the Met Gala? Did I find that to be inconsistent? Yes, I did. Didn't call her names, but I did point out, hopefully with gentleness and respect, that I found it to be inconsistent with what she was trying to advance. So we may agree on some of the underlying issues. I just the approach is what I do kind of take issue with. So sorry, I dominated that floor here for a little bit.
Yeah, it was a good response to that. Yeah, and I guess I'll just say in regards to the rest of this is kind of going back to it. Just here's where we get into like business practices and calling out specific things. I agree that it becomes very problematic as far as how we define hate speech and how we define misinformation, because that can so easily be flipped because you may not have all the information. So what if you classify something as misinformation that just turns out to be not complete information? There's no category for that. It's either
or true information that gets expressed because we don't like it. I mean,
and that's
we did. Let's face it. Let's be fair.
It's
we saw a lot of that over the past year. We did.
Yeah, it's a concern because that's what's happened. And then, so taking that experience, it's hard for me to divorce that from on paper what it looks like. Now, Facebook may have a very good reason for dissolving their civic integrity team, but what it looks like on paper is that they banded this civic integrity team from 2019 to 2020, a very political time, where their main task was to monitor political speech. And then they dissolved it right after the election. That to me just raises.
It doesn't pass the smell test. That's what we like to say.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be open to an explanation, but you want to know my gut reaction? It doesn't pass the smell test.
Yes, exactly.
So, all right. I do want to get on to the next story, both because of I feel like so responsible for all of the delays here today. I was responsible for getting started, and of course I'm in charge of making this all technically work. Although with both BA and Robert watching, maybe I can find a way to blame the two of them since they helped set the setup. No. Yeah, if anybody just tuning in, we did have some technical difficulties at the beginning of the show. We got off to a late start because of something else that was calling my attention, and then we weren't synchronized, but I did manage successfully, believe it or not, to fix that. Hopefully we're still synchronized without us actually losing the stream. So that was my proudest technological moment. I hate OBS. Sorry. Did I say that out loud? Yeah, you're not going to get an advertisement for OBS from me. I'm sorry. I mean, it is good for what it does what it does, but for a professional level, I have an issue with it. So, all right, let's move on to our next story. We didn't even talk about the Facebook outage, did we? Or did you guys?
No, we didn't even get into that aspect.
They were out yesterday. Okay, moving on. Monday. Gosh, time flies. Yes, it was Monday that it was out. I will say that. I do have to say this about the Facebook outage. Mary Kay, you still have the last week's comments thing down there, and we haven't been talking about that for a while.
Oh, well, you had it.
Well, you still had the original, but yeah, I know. Put the Facebook one back out because we are going to talk about that. No, we're not there yet.
Okay.
We're complete.
Where's the Facebook?
4.
Hold on. We lost audio for a second because that's water cooled.
This is entertaining.
Sorry.
No, it shouldn't be that one.
Last
Are they all out of order or something?
They are out of order.
Oh.
Turn off slide 4.
Well, you forgot one.
Turn off slide 4. There you go. Slide 4 is just over. Yeah, they're out of order.
Wait, where's the last
You just had it right. Stop.
There you go.
Steve, leave it right there for right now.
I know, but where's the other story?
It should be on there. It should be number 6, I think. I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go. This is a fun night. So,
what did I say? Top story, Murphy's Law?
Yeah, exactly. This is a Murphy's Law show, I guess.
Oh, BA.
Regarding blame, that's what I'm here for. And congrats on a smooth solution to a rough problem. Yeah, hey, BA and Robert, just so you know, next week we're just going to use the little we're not going to use the ATEM. I think that's what the workaround is. I bypass the ATEM. We'll talk about that later, though. Okay, so I've got to say this because, Facebook went out. First of all, one of the most entertaining things about Facebook going out was we have a social media coordinator here, Sarah Garner, who comes in, and her job involves working on social media. And she had this whole to-do list.
She was like,
most of her to-do list for Monday was on Facebook. And she comes in and says, so, you guys got anything else for me to do? Trying to find work for a social media coordinator when she can't get on social media. That's always fun. Anyway, no, but I did see something, and this is another cautionary note, I guess, for Christians out there. One of my Facebook friends, I don't want to say number one who, and I only put friends in quotes because, we've all got people on Facebook that we haven't talked to, and well, depending on how old you are, in my case, it might be 30 years, and Ben's no more than 5. So
I think I was barely talking 30 years ago.
Yeah, shut up. We talked about this last week, okay?
Just you wait.
You will get there. Anyway, but one of the things that is like immediately after the outage was out is there was this meme circulating about millions of people's data information is compromised. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
So somehow you, Facebook user 54,462,000 have access to these inside information about what was actually going on Facebook servers that somehow has eluded the entire mainstream media, and we're supposed to believe you who posted this meme on Facebook about, all this.
And then you have to reply to Facebook saying, I do not give permission for them to give my information out.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Whole chain thing that goes around.
BA's here next week on Trinity Tech Talk Live. This is all poor Sarah. Yeah. But it's a reaction. It's like we see things that we want to believe sometimes, especially if we don't like Facebook, and let's face it, I know there's a lot in the Christian community that don't like Facebook. I've kind of said my piece about it already here tonight, but and so there's this almost reactionary, we see something we want to believe, so we don't bother asking whether there's any evidence to support it. We just automatically believe it, and quite often we then share it, and it spreads all over Facebook or whatever social media platform it is.
Confirmation bias.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's just something that occurred to me when about the outage. It's like, what's been reported is there's no evidence there any data loss. I mean, if it comes out, then it'll come out, but you're not going to know that literally like 30 minutes after Facebook comes back up. All right. And so just let's have a level, as much as I hate to say, wait till you see it in a reputable news source, because you know how I feel about news sources and whether the term reputable can be applied to any of them. But let's just say a more widespread news source.
A less irreputable.
Yeah, less irreputable news source. Let's try to, avoid spreading that kind of thing, because let's face it, part of the criticism that comes up when you see, going back to the first part of the story, people saying Facebook's been used for misinformation. Okay, well, we only add fuel to that fire when we start spreading memes like that. Let's not give them ammunition.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good point. Well, and also the one thing that I'll say also about the outage is that it was just really striking to me because I didn't even notice that Facebook was down because I'm not your average.
This is the man who I've sent him Facebook messages, and like 2 weeks later, I have to remind him to go check them. I don't send you Facebook messages anymore.
Yeah.
I don't even bother.
Yeah.
So.
Because I'm not your typical millennial I'll check Facebook once in a blue moon. If I do get messenger messages, like those will pop up on my phone, I'll check those.
Oh, so you should have responded to my messages. That's what you're saying.
I've grown to check them more frequently. So if you send me them, yes, I will respond now.
Was ignoring my Facebook messages, ladies and gents. Breaking news here on Trinity Talk Live.
No, it was striking to me, and I kind of had to chuckle to myself because, everybody started freaking out at the fact that Facebook was down for 6 hours. Can we really not live without Facebook for 6 hours of our lives? And evidently so. And so I think that kind of speaks to, our dependence, and actually a conversation outside of this that Mary Kay and I were having before the show about, dependence on just technology in general. Calculators was the topic that we were talking about. But, just maybe it should give us pause as to think how much we're dependent on technology in general. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's a tool that can be used for good or for ill. And maybe should cause us to reconsider how much time we're spending on that.
So BA has the winning comment of the night. He says, I hope you don't mind me slinging this few ounces of mud, but hysterical speculation about Facebook being down is a very Facebook thing to see.
That's true.
Yes, it is. So anyway, let's switch. Mary Kay, you might as well scroll through. We're going to switch up to the Brian Laundrie story.
But I don't think you have.
I don't have it. It's got to be. It's
Might be
not
back one. I think I saw
turn
it.
them all on and off until you find it. Something probably got all messed up. You got to turn the ones off on top, or you won't be able to see the ones below.
No.
So you're just gonna go through them all?
Yes.
It's like weird. All right. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. Okay, I know what happened there. All right, go up there and click on it. I don't know. Are you on the correct slide? No, click on the actual slide. No, don't turn it off. Just click on it to the left. All right. See, it's that it got downsized, and just go up to the upper right corner and slide it on up. Woohoo! There we go. All right. I know we're out of order, but Ben, you were supposed to introduce this one. So
Sure, I'll go ahead and introduce it. All right, so this is this one comes out of Fox News. Our previous one was out of CNN, so we try.
We try to balance.
we balance.
We're
it
fair and balanced.
yeah.
Is
So
that
there's
still the Fox News logo?
Is
Or
it still?
about type byline? I think that is. Is that their sort of tagline? I don't know.
I don't know. It doesn't say it on here.
That was the joke. If you didn't get it. That was,
So there's a engineer, a Florida engineer by the name of Dennis Davis, who was hiking the Appalachian Trail this past weekend on Saturday morning, early Saturday morning, approximately 12:35 a.m. And it was up in, actually down in Hartford, Tennessee. And this man came across a man in a white pickup truck flashing his lights. And so he pulled over and pulled up his truck kind of right next to this other man who, on second thought, Mr. Davis said he matches the description of Brian Laundrie. Now, if you have been following the Gabby Petito case, there's currently I think, nationwide manhunt for Mr. Laundrie. He's currently a person of interest in the homicide now. It's been ruled a homicide of Gabby Petito. He's not been charged with anything, but he is a person of interest. And there are, law enforcement.
he hasn't been charged with anything for her murder. He has been charged with illegally using basically her credit card.
Okay.
On the way back, but yeah, so.
Yeah. That's right. So there is that charge.
Yeah.
So he's evading police officers and apparently Dog the Bounty Hunter as well. Just sidebar.
Because that's not a publicity stunt at all.
Yeah, I know. Sidebar with that one. I've seen like those little memes that are like, if Dog the Bounty Hunter finds this guy before law enforcement, they should just hang up their badges.
They should.
But anyway, regardless, this tip came in. So Mr. Davis claims he had a quote-unquote weird encounter with a man who he believes matches the description of Brian Laundrie. And so what had happened, he pulled up side by side to this truck, and this man was kind of, who he claims matched the description of Brian Laundrie, was speaking incoherently a little bit, said, I'm not from around here, where are you trying to go? He said he was trying to get to California. Now, mind you, he's in the Appalachian Trail in Tennessee, trying to get to California, he said, and he said he's just going to follow this road. He tried to, Davis directed the man to Highway I-40, but the man refused the directions, said, no, I'm just going to keep going down this road. I think it goes to California. The road that he was on, a back road in the Appalachian Trails of Tennessee. So it was a very strange encounter, such that Mr. Davis, who was originally intending on sleeping in the parking lot nearby, decided, nope, not going to do that. And so he called 911 and the FBI and gave them this tip. So that's where the FBI and law enforcement are focusing more effort on right now because of this tip. And so far, they found 3 vehicles around that area, but they all came up inconsequential. They were likely just
I don't think any of them were like. Didn't he say it was a white pickup truck?
Yeah,
none of them matched
the
the description.
Right. So they never found that white pickup truck. So presumably he's still following that road, trying to get to California. And that's where we're at in the search for Brian Laundrie.
You know how you get the white pickup truck, any pickup truck to come back? Start playing the country music song backwards.
That's right. Get your dog back, your wife back, your pickup truck back.
All right. Yeah, so here's the thing when you hear stories like this, and this is not the only potential sighting of Brian Laundrie, you know.
Wasn't there one in like Oregon?
Yeah, and there was also a guy who says, I think it was in Montana, who said he saw him, but this was before he came back from Florida, so it's when he would have been over in that area.
Yeah.
And then of course there was the trail cam that people thought that turned out not to be him, and probably the funniest thing, there's a guy, it's TikTok, I think it is. There's I think it's that. The profile is called "Not the Real Brian Laundrie," and it's this guy that looks like Brian Laundrie, and he's putting up videos about saying, "I'm not Brian Laundrie," and of course the response is, "Well, that's what Brian Laundrie would say." So it was an amusing one because he's like, "I got to go on an airplane this weekend. I'm flying to see my cousin's wedding." It's like, how's that gonna go?
Right.
And so he took a picture of himself or something, and he posted a picture of himself on the airplane in his hat and his big giant sunglasses.
I do not envy that guy right now.
Yeah, so it's so everybody's looking for Brian Laundrie. Do I think that this hiker actually ran into Brian Laundrie? Anything's possible. Am I going to put my eggs in that basket? No, because who knows? I mean, it's
last we heard they were searching the
swamp, but that's because the parents said that he was there. So I mean, if you're in law enforcement, you do have to follow up on this. I mean, you have to follow up to some extent on every lead that you get as much as you possibly can, because you never know when even something that might seem completely implausible turns out to be correct. I guess my biggest issue with this is, look, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? I would be shocked. I would be personally surprised if Brian Laundrie's still alive. I mean, I just got to say, I mean, just because at least from what we know of him, there's nothing we've heard so far to indicate that he had this type of survival type skills. He's a young gentleman. Now, I could be wrong. I very well could be wrong. Then again, we haven't found a body. And like they always say in movie in film, if there's no body, there's no death. You always bring the character back.
Right.
And so, but what surprises me, especially in today's technological age, here's the thing. Think about this guy when he was even out west, how he got home. What he has been charged with so far is using Gabby Petito's credit card
for gasoline,
to get for gasoline and everything like that. That was not smart, okay? Yeah. And so if he's really still out there and still alive after all this time, that means that he must have had some kind of, frankly, large influx of cash, because the moment you use any kind of electronic payment, they're going to find you.
There's a paper trail, yeah.
Okay? Where did he have all this cash? And certainly, you can't just say, well, his parents probably withdrew and gave it to him, because I got news for you. The FBI probably's checked that already,
Or seized.
Yeah, they would know that. We probably would have heard about that, too. So I don't see anything so far from what we know that indicates to me that he has the knowledge, the experience, or frankly, the resources to really stay hidden like this for a prolonged period of time. Yeah. Even when they went on their trip out west, they didn't go in a big tent survivalist camping. They had their nice little cushy van that they outfitted.
Glamping.
Yeah.
Glamping, yeah.
So I just think you need to follow any lead to see where it goes, obviously. I'm skeptical that it was Brian Laundrie, but it could be, and so you got to follow up. And to be honest, we don't know enough about it. Maybe we'll be surprised, and maybe it will turn out to be him.
Yeah. Now we had a couple comments.
We do have the comments. I didn't know if you had anything to say about that before we go in the comments. The comments kind of go on a different path, but yeah.
Yeah, once I think we had said this. Was it last week we talked about this story also, that once they start bringing a scuba diving team, which I haven't heard.
I haven't heard any follow up about that, so I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, but once they are searching a targeted area like that underwater, your mind starts to go to worst case scenario. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's not a good indication when he's used her credit card. That shows not a lot of forethought put into that, and so to evade the police for this long, you have to have a plan.
Yeah.
And to quote the Joker, do I look like a guy with a plan?
Heath Ledger Joker.
Yes.
Yeah. Not Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
Which, that'll be the topic for next week. Which one is the superior Joker, Heath Ledger or Joaquin Phoenix?
Ooh, I say Heath Ledger.
I'm of two minds about that. They're very different characters. But anyway, we won't go into that. So yeah, let's talk about some of these comments here on a Stur's point on there. First of all,
sorry.
Robert Kogers, is the arrest line going to be, looks like we can finally clean the laundry?
Wow.
Somebody will post a headline about that. You know somebody will. It'll probably be Star Magazine or the National Enquirer.
Yeah.
But somebody will post a laundry pun when he is finally found, if he is finally found. Honesters, the very beginning of the show, did have some comments here, and I'm just going to read through them. It says, love Brian Laundrie. I believe he was the real victim of abuse, and don't forget he has not been charged with anything in relation to Gabby's death. All right, I'm going to disagree. Okay, I'm going to disagree with you for a couple things. I do not love Brian Laundrie. Like I said with Zuckerberg, I don't know Brian Laundrie. Am I a lawyer? I'm a lawyer, so do I believe in innocence until proven guilty? Yes, I do. So am I going to get here and say that Brian Laundrie is absolutely a murderer? No, I don't know that. I don't have the evidence. I'm not inside. I'm not going to say that. I have been a lawyer for over 2 decades, however. I used to be a deputy public defender. I've done a number of criminal defense work. I actually did an internship with the Delaware State Police and with the Newport News Commonwealth Attorney's Office. So I have a substantial background in murder cases and criminal cases in general.
So does this pass your smell test?
No, it does not. All right, I got news for now. Do I think there is a chance that there was physical interaction, inappropriate physical interaction, abuse, whatever you want to call it, on both sides? It's entirely possible. This does not look to be a healthy relationship. It's possible. All right. There was, we have to concede this, when on that dash cam, or not the body cam footage, Brian Laundrie had a cut over his eye. He did. And he said that she had her phone in her hand and she hit him. But here's the thing. You can't pick and choose your evidence. You can't just say, look at him, he had a cut over his eye, so obviously he was the abused one, and ignore the fact that a neutral third-party witness who called in the 911 call, okay, who had nothing to do with either one of them, actually said that he was hitting her.
Yeah.
All right? And so piece together that from that what you will, you know, I could just as easily say he was abusing her and she responded to try to get away and hit him and cause the cut. We don't know.
If nothing else, it doesn't really bolster the innocent victim claim.
No, it doesn't. And I mean, there were a lot of problems with his story and his presentation as well. And I will also say that I have done a lot of domestic abuse type cases, and I can tell you there are certain factors that tend to emerge, certain behaviors that tend to emerge, and she did exhibit several of them. Okay, and so is that definitive proof? No, that's why we need to let law enforcement do its job, all right, and let them do what needs to be done. If Brian Laundrie was if he did kill her and acted in self-defense, well, he's doing a very poor job right now of presenting that case, because him running away does not make him look like he was the innocent victim here. I'm sorry, it doesn't. And he's going to have a darn hard time convincing a jury of that, if that day actually comes.
And especially with what we've seen in such high-profile cases, too. It doesn't pass the court of public opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, is why you get, and this is why these cases, these high-profile cases get to be difficult, because, you can always ask for a change of venue if you're in a locality that has had a lot of, you don't think you can get a fair trial because of the amount of media attention, but what do you do in a case like this? It's got national media attention. There's really no place else you can go for it. And so it's going to be, and it's a misconception. A lot of people think, you need to get a 12 people on a jury who have never even heard of Brian Laundrie Gabby Petito. No, you don't. No, you don't. You just need to get 12 people that can be fair, regardless of what they've heard, that the court is confident that they can be objective, they can listen to the evidence and apply that evidence to the case at hand and make a fair decision. Doesn't matter if they've actually heard something before. That's a misconception that's out there. But I do want to say one other thing. You do say that, and don't forget, he has not been charged with anything in relation to Gabby's death. That is true, but 2 caveats. Number one, look what he has been charged with. I mean, he's been charged with using her credit card to get home
after her death
without her, okay? Which shows that she died and he was still in a position to have her credit card, okay? So there's certainly some suspicion there. How is it that she's off here? If you had nothing to do with her death, she's out here dead, and you have her credit card, you have her wallet, whatever. It's like that requires a huge amount of explanation there, and it's highly suspicious. The other thing you need to understand is how law enforcement works. Yes, he hasn't been charged with anything, That may be deliberate. That does not mean that they don't have sufficient evidence to charge him. All right. If you call him a person of interest, and even his lawyer, for example, has come out and said, remember, he hasn't been charged with their death yet. Yes, that's because they still want him to come forward. All right. If he knows that he's been, maybe I shouldn't say this in case Brian Laundrie's watching the show. Brian Laundrie, if you're watching the show, stop watching. But seriously, because if he knows that he has been charged with her murder, he is more likely to continue to try to stay on the run. And so law enforcement quite often does not tip its hand to what it's got and what information it has. Matter of fact, even when you go to trial in a criminal case, you don't have nearly the extent of discovery that you do in a civil case. If in a civil case, I could ask all sorts of interrogatories, take depositions. I'm not going to define all those terms for everybody right now. This is suffice it to say, the two sides in a civil case, when one party sues another, can get a lot more information out of each other than you can in a criminal case. It's much more limited what information you can get out. You actually have to do your own investigation. That's why it was always fun. I talked to people back when I was a deputy public defender. Actually, this was when I was still an assistant public defender. I was on the team that was doing our more serious felonies or murders, rapes, and robberies and everything like that. Well, if I wanted to know what a witness said, the prosecutor didn't necessarily have to tell me. There were limited things they had to tell me, but they didn't necessarily have to tell me everything. And so what I had to do, I have to go talk to that witness. Well, how do I go talk to the witness? Well, one of the cases I had involved, it was almost like a Romeo and Juliet situation between the Bloods and the Crips, actually. Wow. And so I had to go into this territory and to try to find this witness. And it's funny because I had to go in, I'm dressed like this, except I was a lot thinner. And of course, as soon as I got out of my car, what do you think I hear? 50, 50. Everybody thought I was a police officer. It was kind of funny. So anyway, that's just a story that has nothing to do with the subject today, but I thought I'd say it. So anyway, I'm going to disagree with you. And that's why. I don't think that we can conclude that Brian Laundrie was an abuse victim. We don't know that. I don't think there's enough evidence to indicate that. I don't think we can conclude that he's innocent in any way, shape, or form of this. Now, in fairness, you didn't actually say that. I get it. You just said that he hasn't been charged with anything. Yeah. So I do want to be fair to you. But again, the fact that he hasn't been charged with anything, I just say don't read too much into that.
Yeah.
So. I know, I keep talking a lot. See, because I didn't talk all in the first part of the show, so I'm making up for it now.
Yeah, that's where I defer to you. You've got all of the legal expertise, and so...
But we also want to remember that, we would like to presume innocence.
Sure.
Legally, we always do, but we're also not naive to say this does not look good for Brian Laundrie.
No, even with somebody, even the.
I was a criminal defense lawyer, and I wouldn't want to have to try to explain this. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, even the layperson can look at the evidence that we have so far and say this doesn't pass. Yeah, but just a common sense smell test.
But what we have to also remember is everything we're getting is from the media, so.
And what the police choose to let out, by and large. Not always. Sometimes you get scoops,
so we just
but by
have
and
to
large,
we have to be careful about assigning guilt or innocence.
Sure.
Well, everybody's entitled to a fair trial.
No, yeah.
People ask me sometimes as a Christian, how could you be a criminal? How can you defend criminals? It's like, well, everybody's entitled to fair trial, and you don't know, who is that innocent person unless they have the right to defend themselves.
Right.
So.
But anyway, my point just is that, we don't know, but if what we're being told is true, it's not looking good for him.
Yeah. Not so much.
All right. We have one other story here this evening, and we've gone completely out of order. So it's the Terry McAuliffe one, Mary Kay, if you can find wherever the heck that lower third is. It's funny because this is a story. Nope, that's not it. Keep going. Here we go. There it is. Hey. Woohoo! All right. So it's funny because I've lived in Maryland now since we moved up here in 2004. So a long time, actually longer than I lived in Virginia because I was a Air Force brat and moved around everywhere. Moved to Virginia right before I started 7th grade, and then went to college at the University of Delaware and met this lovely lady who's our producer here and who was actually on air earlier today. We got her on camera. Woohoo! See how I did that? I'll be paying for that later.
Yeah, you will.
But my address was still Virginia, and we actually lived when we got married after college, and we lived in Northern Virginia, and then down. I went to law school at William & Mary, and it was so from when was I in middle school? 7th grade, Mary Kay. When did we start 7th grade? 1984, right? So from 84, I just did until 2004. So 20 years I lived in Virginia in some way, shape, or form. But then for the past, 17 years, yes, that's almost 17 years we've lived in Maryland. So I've almost lived in Maryland as long as I lived in Virginia. But I'm still a Virginia guy. I don't know. That's kind of my home. And maybe that's just because it was the first place I lived for a long period of time. After having moved around like every 2 to 3 years. But anyway, but this story does not make me proud to be a Virginian. This was a statement from gubernatorial candidate Terry McAuliffe. Now, for those who don't know, Terry McAuliffe is the former governor of Virginia. He was governor of Virginia from 2014 to 2018. And there was a presidential debate where his opponent, Youngkin, had been arguing that parents should be more involved in the decisions of local school districts.
You said a presidential debate?
Did I say presidential? I apologize. Gubernatorial. Did I say presidential?
Okay.
I take that. Yeah. Gubernatorial. I apologize. Yes, there's not a presidential election coming up. So
not for a couple of years.
It's pretty early for that.
Yeah. Anyway, running for Virginia governor again. Yeah. So he was governor before, trying to be governor again. Youngkin in the debate was saying that parents should be more involved in the decisions of local school districts. And McAuliffe responded to that. And this is, I want to make sure I got the direct quote. It's on here. I had it. Where'd it go? I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach, is what his comment was in that debate. He has been getting highly criticized for that. And like, for example, one parent, let's see, this is one of the parents in Virginia, a school parent named Joe Mobley, U.S. Army veteran, was interviewed on Fox and Friends recently, and he said it's him demonstrating a fundamental lack of understanding of how the government works. The school board is elected by the parents. The parents are the authority, the citizens are the authority over the school board, and actually over all governments in the United States. So I know he was governor before, but he seems to be confused about how these things work. This was the comment from this one particular parent about Terry McAuliffe's comment. So I think we've got a story here where do you draw that line, Ben? So what are your thoughts about this? Because do you want parents just to write the entire curriculum, or do you want where does the control? Well, do you agree with Terry McAuliffe? The parents shouldn't have any say whatsoever. If they do have, but if you disagree with them, then where do you draw that line?
Okay, full disclosure.
You're a teacher.
You're a teacher, yeah.
No.
So am I actually right now.
Yeah, but full disclosure about Ben, you do decide what your kids learn.
Yeah, full disclosure there. So I do not, obviously, so full disclosure, we homeschool right now. So therein, I guess, lies the answer. I do not agree that parents should not decide what their children learn. I do believe that from a Christian perspective, how God has established the foundation, the family unit is the foundation of society. So I think what Mr. Mobley said here, what he was getting at in so many words, I think does kind of reflect that parenting and learning begins first in the home. Before children are even of school age, they begin learning in the home. And so parents should have a say in what their children learn. So no, I do not agree with Mr. McAuliffe's statement. I'm not going to go so far as to say that parents should write the curriculum either. Second part of that full disclosure, my father was a school teacher in the public school system in New Jersey for most of my life growing up, so 25 years at least. And one of the things that was always a frustration of his in the public school system was that there's kind of strict guidelines as far as a teacher's opinions being brought into the classroom. So, for example, for a Christian teacher, they were not allowed to say pretty much anything that could be construed as proselytizing in the classroom. Right? So, shouldn't the same courtesy be had for all matters of opinion that have nothing to do with the curriculum at hand? Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of where we can safely draw the line. That a teacher's opinion, unless they, under full disclosure, say, hey, this is just my opinion on the matter, and if it relates to something that they're learning in class, then maybe you can bring that in. But
is there some context as to what in particular
Yeah, critical race theory.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's how let's face it. I don't remember if the question in the debate was phrased that way, but that's how it's coming up. Remember we had covered the story about the Loudoun County
Yes.
Recently, so I guess not just critical race theory, it's the personal choice of pronouns and things like that.
Yeah, the progressive, a lot of progressive thought and agendas.
B.A. Thomas here does say, regarding what to teach, at face value, yes, I don't want some parents who I wouldn't agree with to force everyone to learn things that are demonstrably untrue but popular. And B.A.'s hitting on why I phrased the question the way I did.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, look, I disagree with Terry McAuliffe. I do. And I disagree with him for the exact same reasons that Mr. Mobley said, all right? Is that, yes, parents do have a say, because that's the way our whole system is set up. School boards are elected officials. Now, but that's why I asked, should they be writing the entire curriculum? No, because let's face it, parents don't know what to put in their curriculum.
And most of us are in subject matters are being forced to teach certain things at certain grade levels, because right now because of Common Core, but even before Common Core existed, there were
happier children. Let's face it, before Common Core existed, math was math, and there were happier children.
I get that
you could do a math problem in like 3 lines, not 27.
Okay, stop it. But I mean, before that, there were certain states that already had standards. The states themselves had standards in play. In Virginia, they're called SOL, Standards of Learning. Don't even go
We're not
there.
going there. There's something else that could stand for that. The kids really love to use that one. Yeah.
Yes.
Christian children do not.
Texas, even when since you were throwing down how old we were, even when we were young, had certain standards that kids had to meet at each grade level. Otherwise, they couldn't. If they didn't show that they were mastering a certain percentage of them, they weren't allowed to move on to the next grade level. In the finer details, like the curriculum that you're talking about, I don't think the parents should really have that much of a say. But we have to be careful about what they throw out there. I mean, if we want to go to an older hot button issue, the idea of evolution.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
even talking about parents writing curriculum, like even homeschool parents, we don't write our own curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
At least most don't. You can
But you can
choose which curriculum you
yeah.
purchase and then teach to your children. So there's a lot more freedom in that.
But even that, you're held to certain standards. I mean, don't you have to report to
Mm-hmm.
the government?
In the state of Maryland, you can go through an umbrella school, which also it's kind of like your intermediary between the school district, and you are legally obligated to notify whatever school district that you're in that you are homeschooling, but then you don't have to necessarily go through. You can go through the public school to do your assessments and everything, or you can go through an umbrella school, which is kind of they're approved to do that.
There is some kind of reporting.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can't just say, "Oh, my kid at 7 years old has taken Algebra 1."
No, you have to. There's some
to
checks and balances. Yeah.
So, and speaking of writing their own curriculum, coming up, it's starting Thursday, October 28th in the evening. We're going to be having a 6-week class here that yours truly is writing the curriculum for on understanding evil from a Christian perspective. For more details, contact Lori Hinman, lhinman@trinityjoppa.org. She'll be getting advertising about that out soon, about how you can get into that particular class. And I think hopefully it's going to be live streamed as well. So if you're watching us from the other side of the earth, you'll still be able to watch that class if you want to. So the reason and BA was hitting on it here, and my struggle with this is my first reaction when I read the story is Terry McAuliffe doesn't know what he's talking about, and I agree. Part of me's got to wonder if it's one of those things. We've all had those moments where things come out of our mouth and we just want to go, can I just grab that back, fiddle with it a little bit, and then send it back out again the way I meant to say it?
Right.
I can't imagine that he really meant to say that the way he did. Maybe he did. I'm not up to speed on whether he's tried to defend these comments or not.
Right. Is he going to double down on that, or is he?
Or if he's clarified it.
Yeah.
Because, you say, parents, you don't have any say in how the education of your children. That's not going to go over well politically. You got to know that, or you shouldn't be running for office. But to the extent that, do I want, to BA's point, do I want some other, the political majority or the majority opinion of parents in a community to necessarily dictate the exact fine item by item list of what's going to be taught in a classroom? No, not necessarily, because then that makes education a completely political tool, where it's your kids are taught by whatever the political theory is that's in power at the time. For the most part, I think that we should leave it to our educators to who have far more experience in this to figure out what's the best way to approach these subjects, other than whoever came up with new math, and they should be banned from ever doing math again. But yeah, for the most part, we should allow that, because when I grew up, all right, let's face it, what were you taught in high school? You're taught, language arts, English. You're taught, social studies. You're taught history. You're taught math. Phys ed. You're not taught philosophy. You're not taught political theory. Right. Okay, these things. If you're taught anything political, it's from a historical perspective. Like I took a European history course that I paid attention to half the time, and so you might talk about really nothing, and
unless unless you happen to take like a civics class or something.
But even that's from a perspective of almost like cause and effect. Yeah. Here's what happened here and what the result was, and so it's we're not taught about at the high school level. You're not generally taught these types of areas that are really, let's face it, the root of many of the disagreements that people have. Now, maybe there's an argument to be had that we should be considering that, because the reason we have a lot of these disagreements is people aren't trained in these subjects and still want to spout off about them. But that is what higher levels of education are generally for. And so if we're really going to be confining our public schools up through the high school level to those types of subject areas, then parents should still have a say, and they have their say in electing their elected officials. Mm-hmm. And then once you elect them, you kind of have to trust them to do it. What I think the problem is we're starting to see things seep into the high school level and the middle school level curriculums that don't fit that definition, right, that are more philosophical type of subjects. And that's the kind of thing where it's like, slow down, because now you really are getting into the area that a lot of parents don't want the public schools educating and being responsible for educating their children on. BA does here say, I've begun to suspect recently that politics is a game of saying the opposite thing of the person before you as best as you can, while making the previous person seem as wrong as possible. Long gone are the days of that person is a fine and upstanding gentleman or lady who insert compliments. However, I don't agree with what they say here. And you know what, BA, I think the best proof of the pudding in what you just said, I agree with you, is if you look at your politicians and you can see how many politicians today are espousing the exact opposite stance of what they espoused, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And if you trace it back, I think it's because, well, Party A said this, Party A said X, or Party A said 1. That makes it less confusing. Party 1 said A, all right? Mm-hmm. Party 2 said B, and then somehow things just go back and forth and get mixed up. And so now the roles start getting reversed. And so now you've got Party 1 saying B and Party 2 saying A, all because they're just responding and trying to, because we have this political system where it's like cheering for our favorite sports team instead of actually analyzing the merits. The merits don't matter anymore. All that matters is disagreeing with the other person. So if the other person's had the nerve to come out and say the same thing that you said 10 years ago, well, then you better say the opposite of what you said 10 years ago, because you can't be seen as agreeing with them.
And yet we wonder why so little people have faith in politicians. If you're just going to say what you think your constituents want to hear because it's the opposite of whatever the other
to disagree, they thrive on disagreement.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we were talking about with the Facebook story, that it's a lot easier to elicit an emotional response of anger than it is to really do the hard work of reasoning through what are the issues, what are, getting to the core of an issue, when you can just get people angry because they don't like blue ties or something.
I just realized blue ties are supposed to be political, aren't they? People think I'm a Democrat now because
Right,
I'm
or
wearing a
red
blue tie.
ties or whatever.
Well, I'm not wearing a red tie. Am I should have worn a different color today, so I'd be politically neutral. There we go. Problem solved. Now I'm really an independent. I don't wear a tie. So
Ken will be running on the no tie platform.
all right. B.A. Thomas now says, all right, this one is the farewell. Good day, gents. And
for
B.A.
joining
Thomas
us,
is
B.A.
going off to stream on Twitch. We'll give him his shout out again. It's Indecision is who he is on Twitch. That's INDYCISSION. If you are somebody who likes watching gamers on Twitch, then go check him out. Indecision. He'll be starting to streaming here in a moment, which is also our cue that we've been on long enough, and we should get going. Unless you had anything else you wanted to say about Terry McAuliffe.
No, I think we've
Exhausted
gotten around
that
that.
one.
Yeah.
All right, so next week, I will be acting as producer. Mary Kay will be filling in my seat, and well, she did such a great job this evening. And,
No.
okay.
And no.
But seriously, we will be back next. Right, we will be back next week. What is today?
Yes.
Today's the 6th. Yes, we'll be back next week. It's not Thanksgiving yet.
That's like a month and a half away.
Yeah, but I think that's the next time that we scheduled aren't going to be. I mean, we're not going to do a show on Thanksgiving
Wednesday.
Eve.
No, I don't
Because we
think
got a worship service here on Thanksgiving
That's
Eve.
true.
So,
Hey, if you're around Thanksgiving Eve, come
put it
come
on your
join us.
calendar. You know what comes before Thanksgiving Eve, though?
Halloween.
Even before that. Thursday, October 28th. That's when the Understanding Evil from a Christian Perspective
Hey.
class starts. See? And I think it's at 7 o'clock. I think it's going to be every Thursday for 6 Thursdays. But it'll go over the calendar of 7 Thursdays because one of those Thursdays is Thanksgiving, and we're not going to have a class on Thanksgiving.
Gotcha.
So anyway, all right, I think that's good enough. Thank you all very much for watching here this evening. Sorry for the technical. What?
I gotta find
The right slide. There's one that says
Oh,
thank
yeah.
you. Here we go. Woohoo! There's the right slide. All right. So you were kidding when you said this was the Murphy's Law show. Everything pretty much has gone wrong, but I think we're still synchronized, so that fix at least worked. So thank you very much. And
Speaking of Murphy's Law, you know what that is, but have you heard of Cole's Law?
Oh gosh.
It's thinly
I know what
sliced
you're-
cabbage.
Yeah, coleslaw. Yeah. Okay. You know, this is why we should always end the show on my jokes, not his. I'm just saying. All right, but seriously, we're here every Wednesday night at 5:30 Eastern Time, where we talk about whatever people out there in the world are talking about. We try to bring a Christian perspective to it. Thank you all for watching. I did not know. Wait, we can't sign off yet.
What?
We can't sign off yet.
Why not?
Because there was something I pledged to talk about at the beginning of the show, but then we had the technical difficulty, so I
yeah.
never did. And probably nobody's even watching anymore.
You still have some viewers.
We do still have viewers,
Yes.
and it's just not just because it was an amusing thing, but because there actually is a lesson and a point to this that I wanted to make. So most people who have watched this show regularly probably know I'm a Christian apologist. I'm actually.
Oh yeah, you did say you were.
Yeah, it's good. I've been a Christian apologist for over 2 decades. Finally, actually getting a degree in it. I'm about to finish my master's degree from Luther Rice Seminary in it. We've done this year. This is what this class is about. This is kind of my culminating capstone project for it, where I'm writing a whole book and I'm teaching the class out of it. But I got a phone call the other day on Monday. And I was actually up in one of the classrooms at the school talking to my wife, and I get a text from B.A., who is now no longer with us because he's out streaming. And I'll tell him I talked about this
Made
tomorrow.
it sound like
It's good that we clarify it because he's streaming.
He's just over on Twitch now. Or about to be. Anyway, so he called me, he texted me, he says, Ken, are you still in the building? This gentleman called you and said that he wanted to ask you a question about the Bible. And I said, you were in the building, but just not here. And he said, okay, I'll call back in 10 minutes. And so B.A. was checking to see if I was still in the building. I said, yes, I am. I'll be down within 10 minutes. And so I came back down and got into my office here just in time as the phone rings, and I pick it up. And it was, I believe he said, hi, this is Nelson. Can I ask you a question about the Bible? That doesn't do it justice. It's more like, hi, this is Nelson. Can I ask you a question about the Bible? Kind of like, do you need a used car? You know, I mean, this was the tone of voice. Okay, it was a sales pitch from the get go. It seemed like, and so the first thing I asked him is I asked him, you know, well, Nelson, where are you calling from? In the sense of on whose behalf are you calling? It was clear that this was not just a friendly, I'm curious kind of call. His answer to me was, from work. Okay, so plus you got to understand it was a blocked number, so he'd blocked his phone number, didn't come up on caller ID. All sorts of alarm bells are going off at this point. Well, it quickly became clear that Nelson was a Jehovah's Witness, and this is something I'd read online, that they're not going door to door now in COVID. They're trying to do their evangelistic efforts over the telephone, and he had, or through mail. But so he had obviously looked up our. He looked on our website, and he actually found quite a bit of information about me, because not just my phone number, but he knew I was an apologist. And I don't think that's actually on the church website, if I remember correctly. It's obviously on some of the things we do. It's on, we got some videos on the YouTube channel and everything. So he obviously researched me. And because he said that he knew I was a Christian apologist, and he wanted to ask me this question, and that the question was basically attacking the Trinity. And he started out by saying, if you believe that God is triune, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, does that mean that the Son, for instance, is the same as Yahweh, the divine God, and the Holy Spirit is the same as Yahweh, and the Father is the same as Yahweh? Actually, take it back. He said Jehovah. Yeah. So I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. At this point, it opened up as obviously disingenuous but still polite conversation. And so we went into. I started trying to have a discussion about the differences between being a person and a nature. And I'm not going to go into all of that here because people are already probably bored with this conversation. But it's funny because one thing you learn about the way the Jehovah's Witnesses are trained is they get trained by the Watchtower, and that's their organization, to engage in these conversations. It's almost like they have a flow chart. It's like, well, if they say this, then you respond this. And
hello, sir or madam.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it really was like a telemarketer. And so he was clearly trying to fit what I was saying into his flow chart, because he says, yes, I'm familiar with such and such, and that's what you're saying, right? No, what I'm saying is what I just said, and so the whole conversation was kind of like that. But then as we started going through this, and he started interrupting me constantly. I mean, constant interruptions. He was started talking about what it means to be begotten, and is begotten the same thing as created, and it was going down all sorts of rabbit trails. But I could not get a word in edgewise. I mean, and every single time I would say something, he would, he'd be interrupting and start saying and disagreeing, whatever. And I one thing you learn, as an apologist, is you can't let people do that, because that's called a steamroller, is what Greg Koukl calls it, and you have to call them on it and try to lay down some ground rules in order to see if you can have a meaningful conversation with them or not. And so I did. I called him on it, and I said, look, sir, you called here saying that you wanted to hear what my thoughts were on this, and yet you've been doing the overwhelming majority of the talking in this, because every time I start to express a thought, you interrupt me. And wouldn't you know it, while I'm saying this, he's interrupting me. And you should have heard the laughter from, BA was here, and one of our other coworkers, Al, was here, to actually hear the words come out of my mouth. It's like, you realize you're interrupting me while I'm talking to you about how much you're interrupting me. You get that. And I'm not going to go into all the details about everything else that went on. And the conversation eventually got to the point where he accused me of saying something which I didn't say. And again, you don't let them move the conversation on at that point. You keep them politely as you can. You keep their feet to the fire and say, okay, when did I say that? You just said that I said X. Tell me when I said X, or else admit that I didn't say X. And what I actually said to him was, admit that I didn't say X and apologize for accusing me of that, and then, and we can go on. And he said, I'm not going to apologize for anything, blah, blah, blah. And I said, then the conversation's over. Because it's very clear you don't want to have a genuine conversation. You're not here to have a genuine discussion. You want to try to convince me. You want to hear yourself speak, blah, blah, blah. Conversation was over. But the reason I wanted to bring this up was not just because it was fun, but because I think there's a lesson for us to learn as Christians in that, in interactions with other people. It is never, in my opinion, never a legitimate evangelism technique to deceive someone. Sure. And in this situation, had this gentleman called me up and just been upfront from the start that, hey, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, I disagree with you about the Trinity, I'd like to have a conversation about that. I would have been more than happy to engage in that conversation. It's meaningful, it's respectful, and it's honest. But when you try to conceal that fact from me and think you're fooling me, which you weren't, and I called you. I saw exactly what you were doing. You're starting out on the wrong foot. You're starting out in a method of deceit. And the other lesson that we learn is that any evangelistic method also needs to be respectful of the person that you're talking to. And you actually have to listen to them. Let them speak. And this is why I like Greg Kokel, his book Tactics I recommend all the time, because actually the approach he talks about is, you do it by asking questions. You're not the one talking most of the time. You're asking the other person questions. And that way they're doing most of the talking, and you can kind of lead them down the path you want them to go down. But it's still more respectful. And so that's kind of why I wanted to bring the story up, is because I think that we as Christians can be just as guilty of this kind of interaction as this gentleman was, where we're
Christian
really
steamrollers.
Yeah, Christian steamrollers, where we're more interested in hearing ourselves speak. It's like, we all know what you think, okay? And you know what you think. The point is to find out what this other person thinks, so you can engage in actually a meaningful conversation and just respect them as a person. So I just wanted to bring that up as an example, because it was a good lesson for me, and I want to remind, hey, don't deceit is never the right approach, It
reminds me of the story we did, oh goodness, a while ago now, about the Christian missionary who posed as a rabbi in the Jewish community.
Absolutely.
Prime example. It's never a good...
That completely backfired. Yeah.
Once the deceit is uncovered, then you've completely lost all engagement. Walls go up, and you may have done more damage to the gospel message through your tactic.
Right.
Because now that person will be off. They'll be off put by any future attempts to hear the same message.
I mean, let's face it, this gentleman was never going to convince me to become a Jehovah's Witness. I've researched it, obviously. I'm not exactly naive to their theology, and I rejected it for very good, sound reasons. But he didn't know that coming in, and does he really think that his approach was designed to be successful? I mean, I don't get why. And here's the other thing that bugs me, is because I happen to know from some of the research I've done that a lot of the Watchtower training, why does he do this? Because that's what he's trained to do. He's trained not to tell people from the get-go that he's a Jehovah's Witness and he wants to have this conversation, because they think, well, once they know that, they're just going to close the door on you. They're not going to talk to you. Well, maybe, but if your worldview is instructing you to, let's face it, lie in order to help spread your worldview, does that really sound like a worldview that's from God?
Right.
I mean, that alone, forget all your theological, ruminations, all right? That alone should give you doubts about where you're putting your loyalty, in my opinion.
It's like getting your dog to take medicine by hiding it in a block of cheese.
Okay, but that's okay.
But no, I think another point that we can draw from that too is knowing when the conversation is not fruitful. As the scripture says, sometimes you got to dust off your sandals and move on to the next town. Jesus tells his disciples that. And so sometimes, yes, we are with gentleness and respect, speak the truth in love. But when it becomes evident that is not going to be received, I think I shared this analogy too, is, sometimes it's not worth the effort to roll in the mud with the pigs because it's a waste of your time and the pig likes it.
Yep. So, all right. Well, I appreciate, sorry for the unexpected tag on the end there, and I think nobody's watching us anymore anyway. But I did remember I wanted to bring that up because I thought there was a valuable lesson in it. And I just didn't get to because of everything that happened at the beginning of the show. So now we're really going to sign off. And we really are, again, every Wednesday, 5:30 Eastern, Trinity Talk Live. Come back, join us, tell your friends about it. Like the video, please. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Click the little bell so you'll get notifications of when we post new things. Lots of good things on this channel other than just this show. And like I said, like it, tell your friends about it, share this video. Tell them to skip the first few minutes when we're out of sync, though. All right. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it.
Ken. Yeah.
And
Skip the part that I'm on.
But she knows that I can't edit it out, because if you edit, little known fact, if you edit out a YouTube live video, you can edit it, but you lose the live chat. The live chat will disappear on the replay. And so I can't edit you out, Mary Kay, without losing the live chat. And then people wouldn't see what we're responding to. Well, I guess they could see it on the screen, but I'm not going to do it. So, all right. And some toll-free number is calling me. So,
probably another Jehovah's Witness.
No, they would have blocked the number. It would
Oh,
come
okay.
So he's got my cell phone number. We're worried. So I'm worried. But anyway, thank you, Mary Kay. I mean,
Mary Kay.
normally I thank you for being a wonderful producer. This time I do have to genuinely thank you for filling in for me so I could get up there and figure out a way around our little technical issues. So I do very much appreciate that. And thank you all for watching. I appreciate if anybody's still watching. God bless you. And we will see you next week at 5:30. God bless.